Hi, I'm Dave Vickers and welcome to the Photo Show. We've got another Photoshop tutorial today, and today I thought what we'd do is use Adobe's Camera Raw feature to edit a RAW file within Photoshop. Now, those of you familiar with Lightroom, some of the features on here will seem familiar because they're the same in Lightroom's Develop module as they are in Adobe Camera Raw. So first off, let's open up a file. So let's open up this folder here. And as you can see, these are all Nikon NEF RAW files. And let's find one in here. Right, we want this one. So select the file you want, click open. And now what that's going to do, because Adobe Photoshop can't actually open RAW files directly, it has to open it in a separate program, which is Adobe Camera Raw. And that's what it's done here. You can see now we've got a different window and a different set of tools to work on. Now, I've already worked on this file before, so I'm going to reset this back to its default settings. So let's check that everything's back at Camera Raw defaults. And we'll start from there. So here's our RAW file as it came out of the camera. And as you can see here, we've got at the top here we've got a histogram giving some information on the shot. There's a lot going on towards the highlights end rather than the shadows end. You've got some details here of how it was shot. It was shot at f6.3 at 1/50th of a second, ISO 200 on a 70 to 55mm lens, which was at 50mm at the time. It was shot in the late afternoon in February, so the light isn't as good as it could have been. If this had been high summer, we'd have got a lot better image and we'd have had a lot better shutter speed to work with. But as it is, we've got a good shot here. We've got St Paul's Cathedral in London, and we've got the Millennium Bridge spanning across the River Thames leading to St Paul's. So the first thing we want to do here is come across to this section here, which is your like the Develop module in Lightroom. These are your Develop options here. First at the top here we have temperature, and that's color temperature. So if we wanted to warm the image up a little bit, we could bring that towards the yellow side. And as you can see there, we're getting more warm oranges and yellows within the image. If we come back the other way, we're going to get more of the blues, get a slightly cooler image. Now I quite like it around there, so I'm going to keep it on the blue side. It wasn't a particularly warm sunset at this time of day, so I'm going to keep it around there. Next down you have tint, and this is where you can come this way and add a little bit more magenta towards the image. Come the opposite way and you're going to be adding a little bit more green towards the image. Let's have just a quick play here. You can click and hold on the actual button of the slider and move it up and down that way. Or what I like to do is if you click on the actual name of the slider, you can see now you get a little finger with two arrows. You can click and slide like that, so you don't have to be as accurate and on the actual button of the slider itself. So let's move this along. I don't like it with the magenta tint. Let's come back down, let's go further into the greens. I don't really like it too much of the green tint. If you want to reset any of these sliders, if you just double click on the button, it'll take it back to its default setting there. So I think I'm going to come slightly more down towards the green and leave it like that. So okay, so that's our color temperature and our tints taken care of. You can see at the top here, I should have done this first off actually, we have white balance, and you've got a bunch of options here. You've got custom, as shot, auto, daylight, cloudy, shade, tungsten, fluorescent, flash, and custom. And this is switched to custom now because I've adjusted these two sliders. We can go back. Let's go back to as shot. Go back to as shot, and you can see both the sliders moved back there. What we can do if we want to pick a white balance point is use the white balance tool here. And what we need to do is to find an area of sort of neutral grey. Somewhere like that is almost perfect. If we click there, it should adjust the colour balance to suit. But as we see there, I don't think it actually did anything. I think the default settings that we had were pretty much on where it needed to be. So go that back slightly with the green there. Next section down here we have exposure, contrast, highlights, blah blah blah. So exposure, because this is a raw file, you're not stuck with the exposure that the camera took the image in. You've got a fair bit of leeway. We can move this way, and as you can see we're brightening up the image now, and so that's a stop and a half brighter than the image was originally. You can see with the histogram now it's very much heading towards the highlight side there. Let's bring that back the other way. If we double click it, it'll take us back to the center. So that's where we were when we started. Let's come back the other way and bring it a stop and a half down. And that's a stop and a half under. And obviously you can see we've still got a lot of leeway here. We can go all the way down there to 5 stops under, and we can come all the way there to 5 stops over. And as you can see, both of those are pretty useless. So I'm going to leave the exposure as it is. We can come back and tweak it in a minute, because the next thing I want to do here is the highlights. Now highlights will, if you watch the sky in the image here, if we bring that up there, that's bringing up the highlights within the image. The bits that are white highlights are being pushed there. But actually what I want to do is I want to bring this down. I want to try and get a little bit more in the sky. So if we bring that down to about there, you can see that's given us a bit more detail in the sky. And it's also moved our histogram away from the highlights area at the top here. Shadows. Now shadows does the opposite. If we pull it up there, you can see it's starting to brighten up the darker areas. If we pull it back down there, it's starting to darken up the darker areas. So let's find a point. Start at the beginning. There's quite a lot of details in the shadows here anyway, but let's bring it up a touch just to bring a little bit more detail into the shadows. I think about there is good. Next down we have the white slider. Now again, as the name suggests, the white slider is just going to affect the whites in the image. If we pull that up to 100%, you can see it's really starting to blow out the sky and all of the white images. If we pull it down, it starts to take the white information out of the image again. So double click that back to the center. What I always suggest in doing this is if you hold down your Alt or Option key on your keyboard and then click on there, you can see that the screen has now gone blank. And if we move this slider, as we move the slider, you can see areas starting to peek through. These are where your highlights are beginning to blow out or become pure white and above. So if we move it up to there, you can see there's a lot of pure white areas being highlighted. Take your finger off the Option or Alt button, and you can see here that we've pushed the whites to quite a degree. Let's come back. What I like to do is just have a couple of little specks like that there. So now what we've done is we made sure that our whites in the image are pure white. Let's do the same for the black. So hold down your Alt or Option key and click on there, and you can see the screen goes white this time. If we push that up, nothing's going to happen. If we start to bring it down, you can start to see that we're getting areas there that the blacks are clipping through. If we do it too far, and you can see now it's a very contrasty dark image. Let's bring it back up so we're just getting a few areas, maybe like that, and now we know that the black point and the white point are set nice and solidly. We can now go back if we want to our exposure setting. You can see that we're still higher on the highlight end of the histogram than we are on the shadow side. So let's bring our histogram across ever so slightly, maybe to about there, and let's readjust our whites again and readjust the black settings so they're still good. Okay, I think I'm going to bring the exposure just back a touch as well there. Right, next we have contrast. So if we pull that all the way down there, you can see that it's flattening the image out. It's becoming very dull and grey looking. If we push it the other way, the difference, and basically what the contrast is doing is it's looking at the difference between the black and the whites within the image. It's, yeah, a higher contrast will have a higher differential between the black and white, and a lower contrast will have a lower differential between the black and white. Obviously, I think 100% there is too hard. So let's pull back a little bit and bring the contrast to a point that we're happy with. And I'm liking that. That's looking good. Okay. So that's this area taken care of. We're now going to look at the next section down here, and we've got clarity, vibrance, and saturation. So clarity. If we move the clarity slider all the way to the bottom, something really strange happens. It softens the image up. It gives a very unreal, dreamy kind of look, and you can see there's halos around the edges of all of the objects, and it's not very pleasing. Let's go the other way and push the clarity all the way up to the 100%. And now it's given a very hard, almost metallic looking edge to the image. The clarity is really pushing the image too far. So let's back off the clarity a bit. And I think about there, I think there's giving us a nice punch in from what we've had before. Next one is vibrance. And again, we can take the vibrance all the way down, and we're taking most of the color information out of the image. We can push it all the way up the other way, and we're taking it to an almost cartoony effect. So let's bring that back down again. It's sometimes a good idea to push your image too far and then back off. You know, find a point where you think, no, that's too much, and then back away from it. So let's go with that. Let's go with 25 on the vibrance there. And the last one here is your saturation. And again, this is just purely working the color information within the image, whether it's a very saturated colors up at 100% or whether it's desaturated to a black and white at that end. I'm actually gonna, let's put a tiny bit of saturation into the sky there. Okay, so I think that's the first page. That's that looked at, and I think if we go from where our image started, which was there, to there, we've made quite a difference already. The next area we can look at is our HSL, which is hued saturation levels and grayscale. So let's go on to this there. So let's start with hue. And you can see there, if I start to move the blue slider here, if you watch the sky, if we go that way, it's going more towards the purple edge. If we come back this way, it's going more towards the turquoise edge there. So I think a little bit of the purple edge in the sky there is quite nice. If we do the purple saturation, there's not masses of purple information in this image. You can see there's virtually no green in the image either. So apart from if you watch here on the windows of the buildings here, there's some green within that. If I move that towards the green edge, they become very green. If I move it towards the yellow edge, they become very yellow. So actually I don't think we need that much green in there, so let's take a bit of that out. Yellows should affect somewhere around here. So yep, as you can see there, the yellow slider going all that way is now making St. Paul's green. If we bring it that way, it's now making it orange. But I think just where it was is the most realistic colours. And we can do again the same with the saturation for each of the colour sliders. Let's up the saturation slightly in the sky there. Okay, and I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to play too much more with the colours and the saturation now. I'm quite happy with how we've got there. Let's go from where we started. So it was slightly bluey greenier there. Once we've done it's slightly more purple in the sky, a bit more drama to the whole image. Next bit I'm going to go to here is your detail slider. And this is where you get to adjust the noise reduction and the sharpening within your image. Because it's a raw image, the camera's applied no sharpening or no noise reduction to the image at all. So if we come in and zoom into 100%, let's come across here. There's a little bit of luminance noise within the image. So if we go here, noise reduction and luminance, if we pull this all the way up, you can see now it's done it almost smoothed it out. It's almost adding virtually a blur to the image there. Let's come the other way and take it down to 0, and you can see now we've got a little bit of noise in there. So let's bring this up a touch, just so we're losing the noise there. And I think we've smoothed the little bit of noise that was in this image out. We've now got luminance detail, which will help us pull back a little bit of the detail that was lost with the luminance, because the luminance is basically giving a very soft blurring to areas where the noise is present. So the luminance detail will bring back some of the details there. Next up here we have sharpening. So again, the amount of sharpening that you give an image is a personal thing, and it varies from image to image. So I think we can probably give it a little bit more. Let's go 50 on the sharpening. I think that's working there. And the other thing I like to do here is at the bottom here you have a section called masking. Again, if you hold down your Alt Option key while clicking that, the screen's going to go blank, and as you move the slider, any area that's black in this image won't receive the sharpening you've added. Any area that's white will. So you can pull it across and just really sharpen the edges of the image. Let's bring it back to about there. Let it go. And let's go before and after. Before and after. It's not made a massive amount of difference, but I think it has added punch to the image. Let's go back to fit to view. And there we go. I think from where we started with this image, let's go back to the first slide. So that was our starting point with the image there. There we are after working on it in Adobe Camera Raw. Next thing you do now is, if you wanted to bring this over into Photoshop, is you can click Open Image here. Click Open Image. It will read the Camera Raw file and bring it into Photoshop. There we go. We've got the image open in Photoshop, worked on it as we have, and now we can carry on working in this in Photoshop, whether we want to crop it, whether we want to do some more Photoshop type work such as cloning and things like that. We could clone the people out from the bridge here. But that's a basic run through of how to use Adobe Camera Raw, especially on sort of like a landscape or a city shot. So I hope you enjoyed that. My name's Dave Vickers. This is The Photo Show. See you next time.